Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you a little something about why you should not always pick all the mushrooms when you're hunting. Now, I did a video on growing your own mushrooms. And here are some logs that are inoculated. I'm going to show you some other clips, some other logs that were not inoculated. Okay, here's another example of logs that were inoculated with a hybrid known as gray dove. Now we're going to go over here and I'm going to show you a few places where the gray doves have spored and spread on their own. And they're actually growing with other fungus. Sometimes mushrooms will grow in harmony with other types. Now there's some oysters. This is on a tree, as you can see, close proximity to the inoculated logs. And there's polypores, some type of polypores growing on that log as well. Now right over here, this tree, the mycelium was full on this tree. And there are more oysters. I broke these branches and set them up. There's a few more oysters growing on this log. It's been kind of an odd year. Not a lot of rain at the right time. Here's another piece that's on the ground. You can see there's a little bit of oysters on there. Now these are not inoculated. These have spored from the hybrids naturally. I'm going to show you a few other spots. There's another stump, a log, which has been impregnated and fallen down. And as you can see at the base of this, there's another cluster of oysters. Now, this is one of my old reliables. Normally I get 2 clusters off of this, but it's getting kind of old there, and probably before too long it'll be spent and stop producing. Now this tree I cut a few weeks ago, actually to inoculate some new logs. And as you can see on a section of it I cut, there's already some of these hybrids, gray doves. They're a late season fruiter. And evidently they were in this tree already. Now I cut these for a different type of hybrid. And I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. Whether one's going to take over, more aggressive, or they're going to live in harmony. Because also there's more of them polypores at the top of this tree. You can see a little better here. There are a lot of these polypores. But those will grow in harmony with the oyster mushrooms. You can see that I've taken a lot of these sections of trees that have been cut or fallen down, and I've stood them up so that I can see the oysters better if they fruit. A lot of these have fruited. I've gotten oysters off of many of these. But you have to bear in mind that I have woods, and in this particular section of woods, there are a lot of cottonwoods, willows, and poplar. So there's plenty of softwoods for these mushrooms to take off on. Now here's another example of some oysters fruiting. They're still young yet, they're in the button stage. Fruiting on this log. Now, this log I did not cut to inoculate. Actually, I cut this log because there was a standing tree that was dead already. And I like to cut them because when you cut the logs, when the oysters come up at the base, if you cut the top of it off, it'll last longer. As you can see, this wood is young. It'll take a while for this to be spent. This should produce a lot of oysters. And this stump, what's left of this tree, should produce even longer because of the fact it won't fall over. Okay, again, here's an example of a tree I cut the top of it off so that the stump will last longer. Here's the top of the tree, and as you can see, there are some small oysters just starting to sprout out of there. They're a little dry, because the weather hasn't been cooperating. We get rain and it dries out. We get a lot of wind. This is October 23rd. That's how I noticed the gray dove. It's very late in the year. We had heavy frost last night. I'm in lower Michigan, so the weather's quite cooler. And normally, oysters don't come out this time of the year, except these hybrids. I've been watering these, but I don't know. I don't think this particular little cluster is going to be able to make it. Now here's some oysters. I didn't catch in time. You can see they've already deteriorated, but that's okay because they spored. Before they died, they spored, and they'll make other oysters. In fact, you can see, if you can see this over here, another piece of this same tree. Here's a little cluster of buttons just starting to come out. Okay, this is another example. Now this is a stump. As you can see, this particular piece of wood was not inoculated. These have spored and come out on their own. Now this will hold reliable too. I've already cut, if you can see, one big cluster off of there. Right there. And these, right there. And these actually are big enough, they're ready to cut. But over here off that same piece of wood, you can see some oysters right there. And there's little buttons on the bottom. I've watered these. So they're slowly getting bigger because, like I say, it's getting down to frost and freezing at nighttime. If the weather was cooperating, there'd probably be at least a bushel basket full of oysters in this particular area. Now over here, you can see some winter mushroom buttons. But they're drying out. They're starting to dry out because, as I said, the weather just does not want to cooperate this year. It's been a very unusual year for some mushrooms. Some have been so-so, done okay. Some of the hen of the woods, I did okay on them. The honey fungus and stump fungus, they were so-so. But all in all, it's been a pretty good year. May still get some winter mushrooms before winter actually sets in.